All right, hello everyone, and welcome. It is Monday, September 19th, and we have hit week 4. This is the home stretch for the month. The last week here, we our things lighten up a little bit in terms of the assignments because we have no brand new game project in week 4, really because we have no week 5 to do peer review and feedback. Revisions. So we take care of finishing out our third project, doing a revision on Palace of Arinthalion, and also you will be working on the sound effects for Angry Bots to finish out that game. And in week 4, our focus is really how do you take the projects that you've worked on and the knowledge that you've gained through the class, and how do you apply it beyond the class. Hopefully, you might be interested in working in this side of the field. So we'll talk about different opportunities. How do you find projects to work on? How do you find clients to work with, games to work on? And really just how do you get your foot in the door, and what sort of materials are really good to show off, and how do you put together your best portfolio and all of your brand and your image together to put it out there online and start finding projects to work on, and new either employers or clients that will start out your career in this part of the industry. So while our discussion in our second class really dives into those sorts of details, our session this afternoon is going to be talking about your new assignments for week 4, and we will also do a round of review from your week 3 submissions. So we have 4 submissions from the Palace of Arinthalion composition that you worked on last week, and hopefully you were successful in working on your composition and formatting it and building it. If you have any questions or concerns as we go along through this session, or if you're watching the archive at home, reach out and send me a message, email, or through messages, through a chat online, or we can set up a screen share. We definitely want to get everything resolved here in this last week. So we have a couple of different approaches to take a listen to, and your grades and your assignments will roll in through the rest of this week. So let's kind of talk about where we are with your submissions. You just finished out week 3 assignments. You also had a round of revisions from your week 2 Angry Bots composition. So you have filled out and finished the music and the sound effects for 2D platformer. Had an initial submission and a revision pass on that. You have done your initial submission and now a revision pass on Angry Bots. And we want to finish out that game, and you will be working on all of the sound effects for Angry Bots this week, which is a lot of fun because it's robots and explosions and all sorts of sci-fi mechanical types of sounds, and lots of destruction and fun stuff that allows for great sound design. So we'll talk about how that's going to be set up, and you will also be completing one more round of game captures. Once you finish out all of your work for 2D platformer, for Angry Bots, for Palace of Arinthalion here after the third week. Once all of that is completed, you got everything tuned up and have music and sound effects working in the game, You play through the game a couple of times. You make sure that there's any tweaks that you need to make of volume. Once you got everything in there together, volume of and balance between music and sound effects. Anything that sounds incorrect or doesn't play back correctly. You address any sort of issues that you might encounter by putting everything in, and then you'll do one final pass of video captures of all three of your projects. Upload those to YouTube and share them in a discussion post so everybody can check out everybody's kind of final version of the games. And having a video capture of everything is going to allow you to have something to hold on to for probably even longer than the game is actually going to work and function for you. Depending on your computer and the software that's installed and the operating system, who knows if 5 or 10 years from now this actual application is going to work just in the same way that it was intended. Computers, certain technology and software certainly moves forward, but a video capture probably is still going to work in a much longer time period and in a much easier format to share. So that's why we encourage you to take video captures of each one of the games and kind of even the steps along the way so that you can have something to easily show off and distribute and show off to prospective clients and employers. So that is our focus for our session this afternoon. And as I said, kind of how do you take everything that you've learned in this class and apply it beyond the class? That's kind of the focus of the content this week. We'll get into that a bit more on Wednesday also. But to start out here, let's go ahead and dive into our week 4 assignments, starting out with the sound design for Angry Bots. So you've already done a pass of sound effects. You've already done a round of sound effects for 2D platformer. Those are fun because you get to open up a microphone, and a lot of them are what are often known as vocalizations, which are grunts and groans and exertions and screams and yells and all that fun stuff that applies to jumps and ouch and taunts and death sounds for a lot of the different actions and characters in 2D platformer. So hopefully you went down kind of through the same workflow of listening and referencing the original sound effects from 2D platformer and using layers below that, using a couple of empty tracks to build your own sound effects using the original sound effects as a reference. So I will certainly suggest the same thing as you were starting out here with the sound design for Angry Bots. So let me get a few things open here. Here is the PDF that comes with the assignment. And again, it's suggested that you can check out Westar Music and freesound.org as sources for sound effects. For stuff like that is certainly a bit more difficult to make your own source sounds, your own recorded sounds, when it comes to robots and explosions and things like that. We certainly don't expect you to blow anything up or blow up your microphone in order to capture any of these sounds. So these libraries have some pretty solid reference sounds that you can use for your own project. And so there's screenshots for each one of the sound effects with a bit of a description. And down here is the entire list of sounds. Last time you had 18 sounds total. This time there are 22 sounds. Again, they're all going to be 16-bit 44.1, but a couple of different types of things. Let's jump over here and create a new session. So we'll just create a couple of empty audio tracks. Get this one out of the way. And we will always go back to the original game to pull in the sound effects. So let's do this. Let's make a little bit of empty desktop where we can place the game. And I'll go get a copy of Angry Bots here. Let's see if it's... There we go. And to find the sounds, the original sounds from the application, right-click on it, choose Show Package Contents. That will give you a folder called, oops, not that folder, give a folder called Contents. Go into there, and you're going to go find Data, and inside Data is Streaming Assets. And inside Streaming Assets, there is a Sound Effects folder, which should contain all of the same sound effects that is in your asset list. So these are the original sound effects, the ones that you hear while listening to the game. And I'm just going to drag that. Well, I think I can make enough room here. Just going to take all of these and drag them onto the first track. And I'm going to make sure it places them all in the same track, so that I can easily reference them. All right, and you're probably going to go in here and space these out a little bit so that they don't sit right on top of each other. And you might have a little bit more room to build your sounds. But you have all of the original sounds, and you can check out how, number one, how they sound, number two, how long they are, how loud they are, the dynamics of them. Do they swell in and fade out? Do they loop? Do they have a strong attack and fade to silence? Just the overall shape of the waveform, volume, length, and just overall sound of how things might sound on your end also. So always remember to mute this sound while you are bouncing to make sure that these do not end up in your final bounce. And then you have a series of work tracks down below here to build out all of the sound effects. So let's take a listen to these here in the chat. Let me, Alvin, quick question. Is 16-bit 41K the industry standard when making these files for video games in general? The answer to that is it is going to be whatever the game developer needs, and it is a discussion with the game developer to determine how large the files can be overall. Typically, everything starts out in the highest resolution as possible. So that's often 24-bit 96K. If you are recording sounds and can go up to 192, and that allows for a lot of very cool processing, especially if you're pitching sounds down. But the final format is typically 16-bit 44.1 or 24-bit 48K. Maybe everything is like 24-bit 96, so that all of the source files start like as very, very large files, but eventually everything is, the sample rate, the bit depth is reduced down to the appropriate file size. So there is a combination. Every time you reduce it down, you lose quality, but you're also getting a smaller and smaller file. So it depends. If you're doing a mobile game, then all of your files typically need to be really, really small, and they might be able to be a bit less quality because a lot of times people are listening out of the phone on the, the speaker on the phone. If they are listening to earbuds, maybe the biggest, highest quality isn't going to be necessary in trade-off with file size. But if you're doing a big console game or PC or Mac game, a lot of times the file size may not matter as much, and you can end up getting very high resolution files played back. Depends on if it's a game disc, if it's a download, any of all sorts of stuff. So all of that is a discussion with the game developer. And once you figure out what it is, you try to reduce the file size as much as possible while keeping the highest quality overall. We use 16-bit 44.1 because it's certainly a very standard format overall. But it is typically consistent, kind of, where you might have music being in really high resolution and your footsteps and punch sounds being not needing to be such a high resolution because they're mostly impacts. Depends on the size of the file and what it sounds like. So, but it is certainly a discussion to be had overall. You need to make sure you are delivering the agreed upon file format. And saying all of that, the original files in all of these games are in all sorts of crazy different formats, which I don't particularly agree with, but it looks like a bunch of programmers just kind of threw some sounds together to make them work, and so we'll make sure they're all at least one file format, the same file, same format overall. All right, let's listen to some of these sounds, and I want to make sure. Might need to turn down the volume a little bit. And let's see here. We're going to listen to each one of these files and kind of talk about the different things that we hear. All right, let me turn this down to make sure like some of the bigger explosions don't blast our ears off. All right. One of the first things that I would do is look over the whole list, the whole asset list, and find similar types of sounds. So for this game, there are a lot of doors and there are a lot of explosions. So we have airlock door open and close. There's close, open. Often you can get away with the open being, or the close being the reverse of open. You might need to do a couple little changes at the beginning or end, but sometimes that works. Exterior rain. So that is a rain loop. Interior hum. It's a pretty boring loop overall. It should be. Those are the two main interior and exterior ambiences that you'll hear in the inside and outside parts of the game. So we said there are a lot of doors. There are also a lot of explosions. So each one of the robots has its own destroyed explosion when it's killed, and when it loses all of its health points, it's destroyed, explodes. So we have flying buzzer destroyed explosion. We have flying buzzer zap electric. So this is the flying robot that you first encounter in the game when it shoots out the little lightning bolt. Each of the the patrol, the mech, and the spider bots have alert sounds. So when they first see you, they make a little sound to let you know that they're coming your direction. So patrol mech alert sound. So it's a little sci-fi kind of sound, or that sounded like almost a servo motor as it turns and then sees you. Patrol Mech, this is a pretty big explosion overall. This is the big robot that once it is destroyed, it plays this sound. Which is a very, very loud explosion there. Patrol Mech Footstep 1 and 2. Basically left and right as it's coming for you. Those sound, I think, a little too similar. They could be, well, I think they're the same file, but I think they could be a little bit different to let you know right foot, left foot. Missile explosion when it shoots at you. Well, that's the explosion of the missile. This is when it actually fires or shoots. Spider alert sound when it they're kind of asleep when they start and they pop awake when it notices you. It has its own, when you destroy it, it has its own explosion. Proximity. Proximity is just one beep, and that beep is repeated faster and faster and faster as it gets closer to you. So notice it's just one simple beep. And that beep is played over and over and over again. So you have to make sure that it's very quick and very small file, or else as it's triggered faster and faster and faster, it will overlap and layer and cause problems. So one short little beep for the spider proximity. Spider self-destruct, if it gets close enough to you in a certain amount of time, it will explode. Then more doors. Interior door open and close. These are most of the doors inside of the game. Let's open and close. Lock door open. That's more of the door sounds actually opening, not the locking or unlocking sound. There are terminals in the game that you can hack. Here's the terminal hack sound. If you stand next to those doors, if you stand next to the terminal or the computer to hack it, then it unlocks that door and allows you to get through. Player hit, if you take any damage. And player shooting, which is your main weapon in the game. Should probably time it out to those shots. The animation of the muzzle flash for the weapon is going at the same rate as those gunshots. So you should try to create a looping file. As the player holds down the key, it loops around. Let's do this. Where's player shooting? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If you just time it out the same as this one, it should create a loop that works quite well. All right, so those are all of the sounds. This time, 22 sounds that you will be creating for Angry Bots. Once you create your own versions, bounce them out, place them into the sound effects folder, and the next time you run Angry Bots, everything should be up and working. It should work just fine for you. If you have any sort of issues, always double check your file names, double check the sample rate and bit depth of the files. If it's still giving you troubles, let me know, and we can always take a look at the files and see what sort of issues there might be. All right, what's next? All right, next we're going to talk about creating your final delivery of your game captures. You're going to create a game capture of 2D platformer of Angry Bots and of Palace of Renthalion with all of your music working in it. And we'll talk about how that is done here in just a moment. Let me take a quick pause and we'll get started here in just a sec. Hold on. Okay, so um, now that you are towards the last part of the class, you have created the soundtrack for 3 working Mac games. You have created the music, done a revision on it, and you certainly have the opportunity to keep tweaking your music until you get exactly the project that you want to show off. And you have completed the sound effects for 2D platformer and Angry Bots. Now you have completed the full soundtrack to 3 complete games. And those games are for you. They are able to be publicly distributed. You can put them up on Dropbox and share the link. You can host them on your website and have people download them. But there are some limitations of having just or only the application, the Mac application to download. And most of those are technical limitations of having the actual game application as the only source of being able to show off what you've done. Number one is it's a Mac game, so they have to have a Mac in order to play it. So there's a lot of folks out there with a gaming console or a phone um, or a PC that won't be able to check out your work. It is an application, a downloadable file off of the internet. A lot of folks don't feel very comfortable with downloading an application, maybe 100 megabytes, and putting it on their computer and playing it. Now, of course, you are a trustworthy source, and we know that these are just innocent old games and showcases for your music. But smart folks out there just don't like to randomly download applications and put them on their computer. So that's certainly a hurdle overall. Then, as I mentioned, a game or any application on a Mac computer is at risk of not being able to function and work if the software changes or your operating system changes or some aspect of the computer changes. We certainly know that applications and software computers tend to change and update, and there's certainly a possibility that a year or 5 or 10 years or more down the road that these applications won't necessarily work, or you might not know where your copy is, or having them function on some new device. That might cause an issue overall. So all of these are technical issues with having just the application to show off your work and show off your music working in a game. There's also some creative limitations, meaning that If everything works for you, right? More than likely, the folks that you send this off to, they will know if they have a Mac computer. They'll know if they can run it. They're technical folks. They're technically savvy. They can get it working on their computer, or they can load up the application, and they generally probably know how to play games. And more than likely, it could very well just go nice and smooth. Um, but then the creative challenges are you don't want you don't want the game itself to get in the way of them enjoying your music. Like they don't know how to play the game, and just controlling and messing around with the game is frustrating enough that it inhibits their enjoyment of your music. The game is bad, so therefore your music is bad. You don't necessarily want that association. That's not necessarily the case. Maybe the game is so good that they don't even pay attention to your music. It takes 2 or 3 times for them to realize, oh, they haven't even listened to the music. Maybe they should pay attention to it. Maybe that's not as bad of an issue overall. But you really want to be able to control their experience with the game. You want to be able to make sure that you highlight everything that they need to see. They could just blast through the game in 10 seconds and be like, yeah, whatever, and not actually experience everything, not know what they're doing, or there's all sorts of issues that can come in there. So having a video capture gives you a very easily distributable view of your music working in the game in a way that you have control over, that you can show off the best points, make your music sound as best as possible in order to show off what you've done. Then you can host it on your website or on YouTube or some other source on the internet, and most people have no issue clicking on a YouTube link and watching a video. It's much better than downloading some random application and running it on their computer. So having a video capture of your work is a great addition to a portfolio to be able to show off all of your work. It's not just a WAV file. It's not just an MP3 file. It's actual video with graphics and music and interaction demonstrating the whole project together. So it shows that you can go through the process from beginning to end of creating the music. You might even eventually, I suggest using this to create like a behind the scenes video where you also do a video capture of your DAW session and do a video capture of maybe recording stuff. You and behind a microphone making alien sounds, and show that, and then show how it works in your DAW, and then show the final product in the game capture. All of that stuff is great material for your portfolio. And the main thing that we wanted to focus on through the class is that you have games that are working, that are need music that you can use to build and add content to a demo reel portfolio setup. So doing the actual video capture by this point should not be much of a challenge. If you have any issues, certainly I'm either in contact with you, or we can get in contact and figure out any sort of technical issues, because you hopefully can make all three of these work. Once you go through the process of getting 2D platformer, working with loopback and QuickTime, and capturing the video and your audio on your computer, then once you get that down, it should probably be the same process for Angry Bots and Palace of Rinthalion. So always check your work, make sure everything is working. If you need to go back and make any tweaks to get the final product as clear and as the best of a demonstration that you can kind of render out there, you want to go through it a couple times to get the best video. The video should be around 60 seconds to 90 seconds long. I used to say like 60 seconds was a hard cutoff, but have found, especially with the Palace of Rinthalion, the final one, to get around to turn all of the music on and off and to show off what you want to, maybe 60 seconds might be just a bit short. So if it needs to be a little bit longer, than that. Hopefully, 90 seconds, probably not even 2 minutes long. That's a bit much overall to be able to show off everything that you need. Once you get the videos done, upload them to YouTube, share them. We have a discussion post this week. Post it up there, embed it directly into YouTube so that you can show off the work that you've done and how it works in the game. And then, yeah, beyond that, in our class on Wednesday, we'll get into some of the tools and technology that has more games and more projects to get involved with. We'll talk about you can get involved with our game students, Full Sail game student projects, and work on a couple of those to get some credits under your belt. There's how to get involved with independent projects. The best thing to do if you're interested in this industry is to really just get involved in game projects in whatever shape and size they are. And there's always folks out there that need audio for their game and then need music. So we'll talk about some of those resources. That should be... Let's see if there's anything else we need to address here. Let me open up a few things. Not that. If you need a refresher on how to set up for the video capture, again, your week 1 game capture 2D platformer goes through the process, making sure loopback is set up and ready to go. Getting a video recorded, you're going to probably want to make as clean of a video capture as you can, either doing a windowed version or a full screen version. Maybe just dragging, doing only a section of the screen. You can click and drag and show off everything that you need to. And if you need to clear off your desktop, hide the docks, make sure that you're running at a higher resolution overall. Maybe change the size of or resolution of your screen, change the size of your game windows. All of those things, if you try it a couple of times, you might get a better combination overall. How to post it up on YouTube so that you can embed it on FSO. And that should get you a final video copy of your game captures that you can check out everybody else's and check out the final versions of everybody's final game captures. So a little bit lighter overall in the content, in the number of assignments. Certainly you have one more round of revisions. You've turned in the Palace of Renthalion, and I'll be grading that through the middle of the week. Get those grades and feedback to you, and you can round everything out for, hopefully we'll be able to finish everything up and wrap everything up nicely by the end of the week. And we'll get the class taken care of. So let me know if you have any questions as we move forward on week 4 assignments, any of your previous weekly assignments. And for now, let's switch to a couple of submissions for the the Palace of Renthalion game composition. So, I want to bring up the grade sheet here. Looks like we have 4 submissions. Notice this time I have 4 tracks vertically laid out. Oops. Earth, wind, fire, and water. I have everybody's names up here on um, markers so that we can identify whose is whose, so you know which one's yours as you're watching this or the archive. And I'm going to play the part of the game as I mix up and down the levels. Let's just pretend that you would walk out each one of the doorways, and I would turn up earth, wind, fire, water, wind, earth, fire, water, wind. And I'm going to use our stereo output to make sure the whole group of everything is at a nice balanced level. And then eventually I'm going to play it with all four of them playing at the same time to make sure that the combination of all four of the tracks makes sense when they are played together. Um, so that's how everything is laid out and how we are set up for this round of peer review. Save, save, save. And we'll start out here with a discussion of the grade sheet. Then I'm going to talk about each one of these, just things that I see visually, and I mean they're all looks like they're pretty well set up overall. Notice that everything starts at the same time, ends at the same time, and on each one of these, the levels are at a consistent level for each. We'll talk about ones that are louder like this and ones that are softer like these, and see how they work together in the overall mix. And yeah, everything visually looks like it is pretty well set. So hold on, I'm going to take another quick pause here before we get into our peer review. If you have any questions so far, either from this submission or any of the assignments, let me know. All right, so um, here is the grade sheet that you will receive back, and everything is kind of divided out as it has been through each submission, with a couple of topics leaning more towards the creative side and a couple of the topics leaning more towards the technical side. So, down here at the bottom, we have screenshots and video delivered. Delivery, we won't be talking about that this afternoon, but we'll definitely make sure that everything is set up correctly and formatted correctly so that, again, we have 16-bit 44:1 stereo WAV files. That should be easy to nail, but making sure that they are all 16 bars or 32 bars long as needed. The mix, we want to make sure that the combination of all four of the cues as they play together does not overload the main output. We want to make sure that nothing is completely buried by another instrument. Can be sometimes difficult when fire cue often is very, very strong, or the water cue is quite light and airy and kind of may get trampled on by a stronger fire cue. Um, you don't want anything to be buried. You don't want anything to be, if the fire cue is to be the loudest and strongest cue, you don't want it to be too low in volume. So mostly a volume balance, making sure that nothing is too masked by any other instrument. Development. We need to make sure that as you progress through your 16 bars or through your 32 bars, that you're avoiding repetition, you're developing your musical idea, the chord progression is changing and developing and moving forward over the 16 bars. Each cue should have a melodic line, and that melodic line shouldn't repeat its phrasing too much as it moves through the entire 16 bars. Looping cue, those should be pretty straightforward. Once you have 4 cues playing together, or for the fact that you have 4 of these files all ending at the same time, if they each have an issue with how they loop, or even 1 or 2 of them, as they play together, you hear an obvious loop point. So all 4 of them need to loop at the same time. They need to make sense as they loop around. And then we have earth, wind, fire, and water cues. Those are the individual cues that build up the full composition. Each one of them represents an overall theme. Earth represents the hero and the hero's journey, made up of smaller solo handheld instrumentation. So you're trying to fit the overall theme and aesthetic of the cue. Typically smaller instrumentation that's much more melodic and bouncy, a bit positive overall as it sings the hero's tale. The wind represents danger, that there are enemies present, warning, foreboding, maybe with an element of stealth. So this typically has instrumentation on the lower end, with maybe some percussion that has a bit of a pulse, maybe some dissonance in there to... or some tension, maybe dissonance, probably not the best way to go, some tension in there that provides a little bit of uneasiness to the player. The fire cue should be the biggest and loudest and strongest cue. Probably big brass, maybe big string sections, percussion, that has a powerful kind of feel, action feel, that represents the battles in the game. And the water cue represents the emotional aspects of the game. It can typically either, it can take one of 2 forms, either everything that is positive, well and good, maybe more of a major feel to it, or you could go towards the negative side with maybe more of a kind of a downward, sad sort of emotional feeling overall. So then overall, as you play Earth, Wind, Fire, and Water together, they need to make sense as one is played against the next. So we will go through and play one at a time, just kind of fading a new one in, fading the previous one out. And then once we get to the last one here, I will play all 4 of them together. Actually, I typically do this. I typically do Earth, Wind, Fire, and then Water. So I might jump around on the faders a little bit. At the end, I play all 4 of them together, and I balance it out here so it's not completely overwhelming. And we make a judgment call as to how they sound when layered and played together. All right. So that is a lot of the stuff that we are looking for as we take a listen here. Let me just make sure that everybody can hear everything. All right. Let me go back, turn this back up, and we are going to start out with the Earth cue. All right, with our first submission. Let's see here. Yeah, loops well. The melodic development, the changes through the cue work very well. There's certainly a lot to pay attention to as it moves through the entire cue. A couple of things. I think the instrumentation is a little bit too powerful. I would cut back on some of the brass. Certainly listen to how it works against the fire cue. You might switch out some of the brass layers for some woodwind elements, and then keep the main lead trumpet. I think the percussion is too big. I also think there's too much cymbal through the cue. I may want to hear some of that in the fire cue, so we'll definitely check out how that ends up together. I like the overall sound of it, and it definitely has a solid foundation to work from. So let's go to the wind cue. Now the level of the wind cue is going to probably, maybe even the water cue, might have difficulty competing with the earth and the fire when they're played together. So we'll have to check out how things play. Texturally, it works well. Light and the choirs work nicely. It does give a little bit of a sense of dread of what's coming on. Maybe some more instrumentation in the lower registers. Maybe a little too much in reverb. Bring it a little bit forward to give some of the instrumentation a bit more detail. Loops nicely again. Let's bring in the fire cue. Nice percussion line. I do think the instrumentation of the fire cue is a bit too sparse and could probably use some of this brass. I don't know about the intense crash through there, and you could probably even replace some of the percussion in the earth cue with smaller handheld percussion, although this has got a strong amount of percussion all the way through. So the strings work nicely in the fire cue, but pull over some brass from the earth cue, lighten up the brass a little bit with woodwinds, bring the brass to the fire cue to fill out the harmonic layers, harmonic instrumentation. Let's go to the fire cue, the water cue. Alright, great flute line through here. The water and the wind, the more delicate ones, work out very nicely. They play against each other nicely. Yep, choir and that flute work well. It all works very well together. You've got nice energy when played together. I do think that the flute of the water cue does hold its own against the earth and the fire cue. Some of the elements of the wind really kind of get lost when all four of them are playing together. Maybe just trying to get the choir out a little bit more forward so that can compete. Although I know when all four of them are playing that it does get quite complex and it might get a bit too dense overall. So melodically and as they are layered together, they fit together, work well together. All right, good stuff to start out with. Let's go ahead and jump to the next one here. This one looks like it's set up. The water cue looks to be a little bit louder than the fire cue, but we'll have to obviously take a listen to them. Earth cue looks a bit lower than the other three, so we don't want it to get lost when all played together. Let's start with Earth. There's definitely some cool harmonies going on through here, the different lines that are played. A couple of things are I would work on the kind of the realism of the instrumentation, either choosing, I don't know if this came from Contact or the XS24 sample library, but maybe working on some additional dynamics of the instrumentation. They all feel like they play at a similar level, working with different articulations to bring out the realism of the tracks. Also working on the timing against the percussion, a little bit of quantization to keep it to a solid beat. Also adding in more handheld percussion to create more of a rhythm along with that shaker. So creating a rhythm that doesn't just repeat a 1 bar or 2 bar phrase, but develops the percussion all the way through the cue, that then the timing and the kind of the swing and the bounce of the instrumentation can work with the earth cue, and then using dynamics and articulation changes can bring a little bit more realism to the instruments overall. Because compositionally, I think you've got some cool, good lines that play against each other that could just be tightened up. Let's do the wind cue now. I don't think you need such a fast pace, like a similar over here, and feels very fits a bit closer to what the Earth is doing, and that is more of the plucked string and the flute line. If you kept it to some of the slower cello lines that you have, slower string lines, and kind of lengthened out the melodic phrasing instead of da 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 da. Keep it on the quarter notes, the half notes, the whole notes, so that it moves a little bit smoother around. Doesn't have such a kind of the frantic pace that the earth cue does. The kick drums seem like it almost feels like double kick drums feel out of place through the fire cue. The power needs to come up. It's maybe just be volume, but it like I hear the plucked guitar of the wind right along with the fire cue, and that could be a fire cue could be a little bit more present overall. But brass works, and the water cue. Kind of move away from, it sounds like you have a flute as a lead instrument in multiple cues. You got it in the water. Feels similar in the wind cue. And that one's brass. So similar in the wind and water cue. Let's play them all together. A lot of the instrumentation kind of bouncing on the eighths and having a kind of a faster pace overall kind of clutters it up as they play together. So with changing a bit of the timing of the cues, EQ, and panning of the instrumentation, everything does feel kind of straight up and down the center. Kind of spreading out the instrumentation will help give a bit more dimension to them. All right, but they work well as they play together. Let's try the next one here. One more thing about this one is the looping. You got to make sure there were definite issues as they loop around. You want to make sure that the ends tie back to the front seamlessly. All right, and we'll do the earth cue here. The instrumentation. Instrumentation is quite sparse. You got the snare drum. Took me a moment to notice that there was a flute along with the trumpet because they're basically moving at the same time. Did that have a pause at the end? Yeah, there was a little gap there. Oh, at the end of each one of these. These files aren't going to loop smoothly. So watch out for that. So more instrumentation that moves separately from each other, doesn't all move on the same rhythmic division. Add in more woodwinds to fill it out. Maybe a plucked instrument to also act as a harmonic layer. Let's bring in the wind cue. Yeah, again, quite sparse single notes and then a gap. Watch out. So this is just long sustained notes, much more movement through the individual layers as they play together. I will give much more interesting movement through the through the entire 16 bars. Fire cue. Fire cue needs to be the loudest, needs to be the strongest. Drums, percussion, lots of instrumentation, brass, strings, full orchestra, the big sections, as opposed to just a little bit of brass and some strings, stronger velocity, more volume. Better instrumentation. You got the piano and the strings here. Might certainly want to add some more layers. You've used strings in a couple of the cues, so make sure that they're just separated out and that they are not overused through the cues. Too much reliance on an arpeggiator for that. For the piano line, just kind of repeating the same phrase up and down as you move between the different cues. So much more composition, much more work on the melody and harmony. And once it all starts playing together, and you got 2 or 3 instruments per cue, it starts getting a little bit more complexity overall. But you need to make sure that there is enough when it stands on its own or in combinations of 2 or 3 that there's still enough going on. We'll do one more here. Bring everything back down, go to the earth cue. I like the kind of waltz feel to it from the guitar. Melody can maybe bounce a little bit more. A little bit more movement. Sitting on those quarter notes. There's a little hiccup there as it looped. Maybe a little bit more from the percussion. A couple of more handheld rhythmic elements. But a good start overall. The wind cue. Feels a little bit of, there's a little bit of tension as it plays against the earth cue. Yeah, there's definitely a little pop or click as it loops around. Layers there feel a little bit too dissonant as they play together. So watch your different, sounds like a little piano, cello, right there, and some tension. So maybe add a couple of more instrument layers to balance more instrumentators in the higher register to kind of balance the top end with all the low instrumentation. Fire. All right. Trumpets and French horns work well together. The drums feel a little bit robotic on the timpani. The crash cymbal doesn't seem big enough. Maybe a little bit larger percussion overall. Brass works well. It does kind of repeat its phrasing. So a little bit more variation there. A little bit more from the percussion. Maybe an ostinato string, something to balance out just the brass. So that it adds more to the power of the fire cue. And water. There's the piano. Again, there's still some tense notes that I think I hear: piano, organ, and choir. They maybe move a little too closely together. The choir could maybe go, almost sounds like single notes, could go for chords. Again, maybe something in a higher register. A melodic line will work against the wind cue. Oh, I'm sorry, the water cue. All right, let's bring these together. Watch the loop there. The thing kind of starts over. Instrumentation kind of seems to be sitting around the mids, low mids, kind of muddying things up there. Again, through the use of EQ and panning, you can probably cut out ranges for those instruments, maybe moving them into some of the stuff in higher octaves to kind of balance everything out. Now watch out, the earth cue is kind of lost when all of those things are playing together. All right. So, a couple of different looks into how your classmates are setting up their own projects. You've submitted on Sunday, and I will be grading these through the week and returning them back to you for a final round of revisions here in week 4. If you have any questions, I will stick around for a few minutes after our session here, but other than that, let's wrap it up there, and we will meet up again for our final session on Wednesday. That will round out the classes, and you have week 3 revisions and your new week 4 assignments due by this Sunday to wrap up the month. So I will see you again Wednesday, and you have a good rest of your day today. And I will see you next round.